So over the weekend, Professor Alan Dershowitz, he tweeted, quote, Swetnick affidavit should be thoroughly investigated by the FBI and her alleged witnesses, named and questioned. If perjured, there should be consequences. Here now with reaction, author of the New York Times bestseller, The Russia Hoax, Fox News legal analyst Greg Jarrett, author of another bestseller, The Case Against Impeaching Trump, Harvard Law School professor Alan Dershowitz, Fox News contributor Sarah Carter in D.C. When you saw the interview that I don't think ever should have aired, Professor, and all of the backtracking, well, he was near the punch bowl, well, it wasn't a line. She was claiming originally that there was systemic, regular drugging and gang raping of young girls, and that she had attended 10 of these events, but it happened almost every weekend, she said. And nobody told a parent, a teacher, or law enforcement 36 years ago, but it happened regularly. Then she backs off. What should happen?
Well, first, I'm glad that they ran the interview. I think it's an education moment. I think the FBI ought to investigate every single one of her claims. And if it turns out that she made it up at whole cloth, that she never met Kavanaugh, that she was several years older than him, that she, along with others or by herself, simply made up a story, the FBI should conclude that. She should be tried for perjury, and she should be sent to prison. This becomes a very important education moment, because we have to teach the women of the world and the men of the world that there is no genetically linked aspect of telling the truth, that women make up stories out of whole cloth about alleged events that never occurred, and that's why it's so important. But look, we know this happens so many times, but this is an education moment. The world is watching. That's why she is the most important subject of the FBI investigation.
What about her inconsistencies? She backtracked spectacularly in this interview. She mentioned 4 people to corroborate. 1 is dead, 2 didn't respond, and 1 said, I never heard of her.
You're being generous to her when you say she backtracked. She swore under oath, subject to felony and perjury, that certain things happened. She then said they didn't happen, and she changed her view. Any good prosecutor, if the evidence shows that she made it up out of whole cloth, should be able to prosecute her and sentence her to prison. The problem is women who lie and falsely accuse men get away with it. They don't go to prison. And President Trump was absolutely right when he talked about how young men are vulnerable, young women are vulnerable.
Scary.
There is too much sexual assault, but there's too many false accusations of sexual assault, and the FBI must get to the bottom as to whether this is one such example.
Fair. There is evil. There are predators. There are people that commit atrocities like rape and assault and drugging, and it doesn't help the case of those women that are real victims.
But even putting aside who it helps, the idea that a woman will get away with having made a willful decision to falsely accuse somebody.
What about the attorney,
Professor? Heinous crime, well, we have to ask that question. I've asked Avenatti to waive lawyer-client privilege so the FBI can ask her, how did the story begin? Did Avenatti help you? Did he make the story more elaborate?
Wow.
We've got to get to the bottom of this.
Greg Jarrett, let me ask you the same question. And I will tell you this. I learned a lot when I was in Atlanta. I didn't rush to judgment on Richard Jewell, nor did I do it in Duke Lacrosse, nor did I do it in Ferguson or Baltimore or Cambridge Police or Trayvon Martin, as others did. There's way too much rushing to judgment in this country, especially by my so-called colleagues in the media.
I agree with the professor. Julie Swetnick would appear to be in legal jeopardy, and here's why. Perjury is a material false statement that is willful and deliberate and purposeful. Her sworn statement is dramatically different than what she told NBC News. She would be well advised to fire Michael Avenatti, the publicity-seeking carnival barker, and hire a real lawyer. And she's going to need a good criminal defense attorney, I predict, because her story is completely disintegrating. And anybody else in this case, including any other accuser who made a false statement, is also in legal jeopardy, and it's probably a good idea that the FBI launched this investigation because they'll be looking into the truthfulness and credibility
we never
of
seem
these
to
accusations.
follow up on these things, but you're both right. Let me go to other new details. We have a letter from a boyfriend of Professor Ford. Eyewitness Dr. Ford helped McClain prepare for potential polygraph exam, and Dr. Ford explained in detail what to expect, how polygraphs worked, and helped McClain become familiar and less nervous about the exam. Dr. Ford was able to help because of her background in psychology. What are we to take out of that?
Oh, this is incredible, Sean. And I agree 100% with Alan Dershowitz and with Greg Jarrett. If they were lying, we should not ignore this. If they find out they were caught in perjury, they should be prosecuted for this, because this is a man's life and his family that's at stake. Not only that, it discredits every other woman that's been through sexual assault.
Let me get this other issue. Let me ask you this. Every single case from Professor Ford, she identified an eyewitness who does not agree with her allegation or account. The same thing, the story of Miss Ramirez and the gaps in memory and inebriation, etc. And even the New York Times said she was asking people, I don't remember, but do you? Was it him? I'm not sure.
Yeah, they're calling people. She's calling people. Mrs. Ramirez, was it him? Could it be him? They're just throwing allegations out there. This is a disinformation campaign with one objective in mind, to destroy Judge Kavanaugh. And God bless him. If he is actually standing up for what he believes in and fighting this back, he needs to continue to fight this.
The accusation will stay with him forever.
It will.
And
but you know what, Sean? At this point in time, he can fight this, and the people will stand up and believe him. We cannot walk away from
Professor?
But the real villain of this is the American Civil Liberties Union, on whose board I served with honor for many years, when it was the ACLU, the American Civil Liberties Union, instead of the ACLU, the Anti-Civil Liberties Union. They are now saying that suspicion is enough, that presumptions ought to be in favor of guilt, that if there's doubt, you convict. Imagine if they had said that during the McCarthy period. During the McCarthy period, they never said when people were fired from their jobs, this is just a job interview. They required proof by a high standard. But when it comes to this, they are making a fortune of money. Their budget has gone from $20 million to $130 million because they've abandoned civil liberties and have one campaign: get Trump, get his appointments, get his nominees.
Sean, the good news is the American public are not buying this. There's a new Harris-Harvard poll out. 60% say Kavanaugh should be confirmed absent any corroborating evidence against him, and so far there is none.
Been corroborating
and 70,
evidence, which is
exactly.
This is
and that's
so
what
foundational
Americans say.
To our country's system.
And 75% say Dianne
this.
Feinstein is to blame for this national disgrace for withholding information.
Let's wait and see until all the evidence comes out. I want to keep an open mind. If there are information that is disqualifying, then
as of now, there's nothing.
We have to look at the evidence. Follow the evidence, not the polemics.
Absolutely. And Americans aren't stupid, Sean. Americans know what's going on here. They're going to follow that. That's why we're seeing the polls the way they are. And that's why people are going to go out to vote. That's right.
American people usually get it right. I trust them.
We do.
All right. Good to see you. Thank you all for being